Hello and welcome to the course. So this year the course Fundamentals of Game Development will be a fully online course, meaning that you will be doing everything on this course in the Moodle environment. How the things are organized is that this course lecture works as an introduction to topics, and all these lectures which are follow-up for this one will be released in the Moodle platform. The last year's course lectures are already available, although there will be changes during these lectures, and the more updated information will be added every time we update the course videos. The schedule for the release of the 2021 updated videos is also on the Moodle pages, but the important part for you to know is that the course project and all the materials are released this week, so you can start your independent work and self-study immediately. So welcome to the course, and hopefully you will enjoy us. So, like said, the course is Fundamentals of Game Development. On this course we talk about the topics of game development and software industry and software development, in a sense that since you are already bachelors of something relevant to software engineering, on this course we will not focus on fundamental aspects of programming or stuff like that, but rather on the fundamentals of game development as a specialization for software business. So in this sense, if you are already competent programmer or competent software developer, what sort of things you need to know and learn before you can switch over or start working as a game developer. So today's agenda on this first lecture is basically go through the basic stuff. So what is the aim of this course? How can you actually pass this course this fall or this year if you are doing this sometime other than on the fall period, which is the default time for doing this course. If you are taking this course during the summer 21, then hi, how are you? Hopefully in the future things are better than this year, when we, due to coronavirus, cannot have teaching events or extra or unnecessary teaching events, or teaching events which don't absolutely need campus hardware. We can't use the campus for this sort of things. So today we are talking, I'm giving this lecture to you as a video. So how can this course be passed? What's the aim of this course? And in general, what you should do today or this week or in near future to get started on making games. These are the things that we'll be talking today. Let's start by going through the basic things about administration. Well, let's start with the official declaration. What's the official content of this course? So, the official objective of this course is to learn how to use selected game development tools, how to enable you to independently design and develop a small game so that you can develop games or do game development independently. Later on, the idea is that you can participate on events like the Imagine Cups or game jams or hackathons or code camps or whatever, which require you to create something visual, something entertaining, something that's game-like. The idea is that you already have various amounts of experience in software engineering. You know how to do programming work. You know how to do testing work. You know how to do user interface design and these sort of things. So how would you then use this experience or these capabilities or skills in game development context? So basically, on this course, we are going through following topics. Oh, well, actually, when I'm saying we, I mean that I'm ordering or giving you instructions to go through these things. I'm not doing jack shit, I'm just giving you these lectures. It's your responsibility to learn these things. But basically, this course covers basic game development tools, game engines, more or less. The physics engine, the graphics engine, the stuff that runs everything, makes the illusions, smoke and mirrors happen. What's the basics of working with 3D objects? So if you are doing a 3D game, you get more of this stuff. If you are doing 2D game, platformer, for example, you will be doing less of this stuff. But still, there's going to be a tutorial games or tutorial projects in which you are expected to demonstrate that you can work with three-dimensional objects. You can animate them or use existing animations of 3D objects. Do game development related programming. Create a small, simple AI. It's really not that difficult, or there's tutorials and demonstrations for that. How to do triggers, how to make a game, how to make something that can be played with a gamepad or stuff like that. Perhaps some of you have already been doing these sort of things, but in case you haven't, this is the course where we'll be learning about that. The basics of sound engineering. So you have to make sound effects. You should also make background music, but of course not every one of us are composers, so it's enough if you are capable enough on actually joining existing music or using existing sound effects on your game products. Also, on the lectures themselves, we will be talking about gamification and serious games. So the stuff that's related to games, but which is more popular or more familiar on the software engineering discipline. So what has the game industry or game development brought to the software engineering discipline? So there is actually going to be some connection between the software engineering and game development after all. So basically, to give you an idea how to develop games with modern game engine, how to actually make those games and understand how professional game developers develop and produce their products. Teach you introductory stuff about game engines, physics engines, how to make things go. For example, make the 3D character do some animations and walk around and jump and do that sort of stuff. Understand how game development differs from traditional software engineering. Like I mentioned, you already know what being a software engineer is. So now we are going to talk about what game developer is and how it differs. And finally, enable you to develop games independently. And if you are still interested in this topic after taking this course, participate on Finnish Game Jam event on next January. There has been traditionally a Finnish Game Jam Lappeenranta site at the Student Union building. It's also one way to complete the Code Camp course. So if you want to continue game development and grab a couple of more credits, then you can continue with that topic on that event. It's an informal event, really. 1 weekend to develop a game based on a given topic or theme, and small seminars built around it so you can show your product to other students also around you. So on this course, the default development environment is the Unity 3D game engine. So this means that when you are doing your development work, unless you have previous experience, you are expected to learn how to use Unity. This is also because, well, there's tons of different game engines. If you just pick something and start working with it, you might be okay, but still, if you want to work as a group or as a team with someone else, you should also know similar things. So Unity is used because it's fairly popular. It has a wealth of online information, and it's also something that does everything. If you develop games with Unity, you are more or less learning skills that are directly applicable in the games industry. And also, you will be creating a promotional video, so you will be learning something about recording software, editing tools, making your own game trailer for your own game. This is also part of your project. So you learn also that stuff if you haven't done it before. And finally, write a game design document. So, of course, if you don't know any Office tools, then I'm asking you what the hell are you doing on this advanced software engineering course. But anyway, you also have to design stuff. So basically, pretty simple things. So, why Unity? Like mentioned, it's probably one of the most applied game engines currently in existence. Of course, there's things like a Game Maker Studio or Unreal and other things, but Unity is something that has been free, and it has several extension modules for different platforms, which are also free up to a certain point. So if you use the free standard version, you can even do commercial development. There's nothing saying that you can make a game, put it online, make millions of money. Well, of course, after 100,000 US dollars in profit, you are expected to upgrade to the professional version, but that's like something like 700 euros, so it's not that much after you have made your first 100,000. But anyway, these are the exact same tools that the game developers use. A couple of years ago, there was a problem that game developers or game studios have to invest money on more easier or more fluent or more capable tools than what was available online and for free and for learning. And there was a wealth of different licensing things for Unity, for example, or Unreal Engine. But Unity decided to switch this all away, and it's free for you to use. So that's why we are using it. It's compatible with almost anything you can imagine. Animations, graphics, sounds. Almost no matter what the format or what the tool you developed with, Unity can probably import that asset. That's important because if you are drawing stuff or making animations or doing whatever 3D objects, for example, with some Corel or Blender or whatever, it's important that the model actually imports to Unity. Because if it doesn't import to Unity, you can't use it in your Unity project. Simple as that. Also, it's compatible with almost any gaming relevant platform. So starting from something like smart TVs to mobile phones, tablets, game consoles, PC, web browsers, it works with them. You can deploy to them and you can develop for them. So you can pretty much select what fancies your interest and use that as your continuance topic. On this first course, we will be doing a PC standalone, or if it's simple game enough, then web browser standalone game, so that you can test out the different things regarding your game. And in any case, it also allows you to buy new assets or tools or things from its asset store. So if you are unable to find yourself a capable graphics programmer, but you still want to develop something that looks professional or launch something in Google Play or something like that, you can buy an asset pack. For example, this Fox Final Fantasy 6 style sprite things sets for libraries cost something like 20 euros for everything. Or simple 3D objects on which you can make simple shooter games or skiffy game are also next to nothing. Of course, you are not required to use those commercially available aspects or assets here on this course. You can work with free stuff and use the Unity default or example assets on your projects. But for the future reference, if you want to continue game development and don't bother drawing the stuff yourself, or simply don't have enough artistic talent to draw that stuff yourself, you can easily extend your asset library by just using your credit card. And also, Unity is really flexible tool. For example, the Kerbal Space Program was made with Unity. How many of you know what this game is? Raise your hand. Okay, so most of you. I'm not going to spend that much time on explaining it, but that was made purely with Unity. Also, this one, Scrolls. It's well, it's the other game from the Minecraft company, which no one talks about. It's a bit of a sort of like a Firestone game or Magic the Gathering card game, which really didn't catch on, but still, this was also made with Unity. The Kerbal Space Program being 3D physics simulation game for space program, and this being a Magic the Gathering style card game. The third example, Space Hawk, which I just remembered is hugely crappy slide because none of you can actually see what it says here. But the Space Hulk is, or well, more or less was, the new XCOM style tactical strategic shooter game intended to be multiplayer game. Unfortunately, the game build, which was shipped originally, came with some small bugs like that. These bugs here, the space aliens don't have artificial intelligence in them, or they didn't have. They just waited for it to be shut because the game didn't work. But the idea is that you can make an XCOM style game, or Magic the Gathering board game or card game, or Kerbal Space Program, or Bad Piggies. This is also something that was made with Unity. Basically meaning that there's no limitation on what type of game you can do. It can be almost anything because it's just about the assets you choose to use. Do you choose to do 2D or 3D scenes? Do you use camera, 3D, which isometric camera or first-person view camera, or what? How do you configure your game? The Unity allows it all because it's fairly extendable or fairly complete tool for doing game development. So basically, what I'm saying here is that you can do the next Call of Duty game or whatever, Fortnite, I don't care. Make millions of money, well, as long as you graduate from here. That's something that I have to oversee. But anyway, you can do almost whatever you want. Probably you won't be making millions with the game you designed and developed here. But there's no reason why you couldn't do that, because you will be using exactly the same tools and systems and services available to you than to any other game developer. The game studio, which is going to be giving you a visiting lecture, actually started as a Finnish Game Jam code camp group. They made a hugely popular game, demo, proof of concept demo of the game, and the judges who were from the local game company said that this is really, really great idea. You should consider making this a game. So they made the game, and now they are in the 5th year of their business. So consider that this course has actually launched a couple of game studios. So because people find out that making games is actually much more interesting than making online billing and transaction systems, or making the 5th millionth online marketing place or something like that. Anyway, but however, keep in mind that this is an assisted self-study course. So, what is assisted self-study? So most of you probably already know this because we have been using these types of courses already in the bachelor's level. But if you are not from us, from our university especially, then you have to understand that this course will not have weekly lectures. We will not have demo lectures, we will not have demo exercises or exercises groups in general. We won't actually even have weekly exercises on Unity development or anything like that. We will have a couple of lecture days on which we will be talking about, well, I will be talking about different aspects of entertainment software engineering, mostly about gamification and how game industry works, logistics-wise. But still, you have to learn things yourself. You can use the Moodle pages for discussion, asking questions from each other, or from the course assistant, or from me. We will be answering to those things which we can answer, because all of you have personal projects after the tutorial. We obviously cannot answer you online, but you can. But if you are completely stuck, you can ask help from the course assistant, who will be hopefully capable of helping you. So this means that how hard or how easy you want this course to be for yourself, it pretty much is about how interested you are in this topic and what's your ambition level. The minimum requirements for the game, which is eligible for getting a final grade from this course, isn't that much, but usually people want to do something more funnier or more ambitious up to some degree. Of course, I have to sometimes rein your imagination in, because the game also has to be something that you can actually develop during the next 12 weeks. So if you start to make a new Fortnite, you probably don't get that far during the first 12 weeks. And also, I want to bring this up because I found this very funny thing. So, okay, this is a self-study course. So I got feedback a couple of years ago that the lectures were horrible and everything that you need to know you had to do by yourself. So, surprise everyone, this is a self-study course. It means that you sort of have to study by yourself. I will be talking about things, but if you select some topic or select some tools, it's up to you to learn how to use those things. Of course, the lectures might still be horrible. I'm not going to say that it's not at least partially correct feedback, but keep in mind that you might be able to paint yourself into such corner that even me or the course assistant can help you. So, in sake of everyone's sanity, keep your first project relatively simple. We're not asking you to do anything complicated. We are more or less asking you to provide us with the proof that you can actually develop games on this course. So, how do you pass this course? We have basically two projects. First of all, the first part of the course will be about you making Unity tutorial projects. There's a number of fairly common, fairly simple, fairly easy tutorial projects in the Unity self-study library. There's a side-scrolling shooter game, and there's a basic structure for roguelike game. There's an isometric third view shooting game, and there's also this rollerball game where you are collecting stuff with a ball that's rolling in a box. So out of these demos or tutorials, pick two of them, complete them, and make a video where you show and explain what happens here, how this works, what you develop, what you actually did. It's only to ensure us that you actually did something. You learned how to use the Unity tool, and based on those tutorials, design your own game, your personal project, make the first version of the game design document, and start doing the development work for your own game. When you submit your game design document, we will be browsing through them, seeing that it's generally something that's doable. I have been running this course for 6 years now, so I have a fairly good idea what's doable and what's not. If I tell you that this is too complicated, you should focus on these and these things, at least try to pay attention to what I say, because I don't want to be the guy giving you a failed grade because you simply didn't have enough time to do this course. This is supposed to be sort of fun, engaging, extra activity, which gives you points on doing something that's not as serious as learning how ISO IEC standardization works, for example. Anyway, the personal project is something that you should implement by yourself, based on your own design. It can be or should be something relatively simple. Breakout, Space War, Pac-Man, the original Mario Bros. Bros, the arcade game, not the platform on NES system. None of you probably have ever heard about it, but anyway, the weird game in the Super Mario Bros. 3, which by the way is also something you might have never heard. Anyway, but that's the original Super Mario was the arcade game where the Mario and Luigi are in a one-screen sewer trying to get rid of all the turtles and stuff like that. Very simple to implement, so try to do something like that. Also, if you have previous experience, if you have been doing game development with Unreal Engine, for example, or Game Maker Studio, you are also free to use that. I'm not going to say no, because if you are from some other university, you might already have several courses on game development, so you don't have to learn to use Unity beyond the tutorial projects. For me, you can also do it with the tools that you have selected by yourself. It just has to work when we are testing it out. And finally, the last thing is a 60-second teaser trailer for your game. So basically, if you were selling this or pitching this on a competition, what sort of 60-second video you would make to show the best assets of your product? If it's something simple, try to focus on the humor value. If it's fairly complicated and graphically impressive, then you might of course want to use or show your game in-game footage more. Then, couple of details. So you go to the Unity website, unity3d.com, and go to the tutorials and select 2 projects from the beginner level. If and hopefully when you are all competent programmers, this will take you 1 night, 2 nights, 1 weekend perhaps, with all the requirement, documentation work and video making. So this is not that much. It's just something that we know that you started this course and actually understand what you are supposed to be doing. Of course, if you have never developed any sort of game, you might also want to consider what type of game you are interested in making. Because by that you can select the tutorials, beginner level or intermediate level tutorials based on the things that you want to do by yourself. If you are interested in first-person shooter, you might want to select a tutorial which emphasizes these aspects. If you want to make a roguelike game or arcade game, you might want to test out something that teaches you how to work with the 2D scenes and do some sort of infinite games, stuff like that. Yes?
So we have 2 tutorial projects.
Yes.
And you want us to make 1 video about both of them or 1 video for each of them?
1 video for both of them.
Okay.
Yeah. So 1 video is enough. Just show what you did, what you learned, and how will you use that information on the core, on your personal project. And for example, if you are an experienced programmer and you want to do something else, you can also throw out an idea on the Moodle pages of this course on the discussion board. You can also replace this part with something else. For example, one guy wanted to learn how to create network code and make a 2-player game in Unity, and he wanted to do this tutorial where they explain how simple game where 2 players over network are basically playing a sumo game with the ball, with their avatars, which were bouncy balls. And of course, that's okay by me. If you already know how to develop games, you can also try to give an idea on what else you might want to do. We're not here to waste your time with these beginner things if you already have experience on the area. Then, when you have done the tutorial project, you are expected to make your own game design document. And this more or less follows some ideas based on the interviews done with the game studios I have been working with on my research projects and on commercial capability. So, how do you design games? It's not like it's a very formal process. It's not like you have, well, on some occasions you might want to go out and find customers or target audience. If you want to make a game for 12-year-old boys, then you might want to talk with 12-year-old boys or something like that, because you want to know what your target audience wants. Of course, on this course, we more or less can expect that you want to just make a game for any user who wants to play those games. So how do you get an idea? So if you are a professional game developer, there's really not a philosopher's stone or something like that which you touch and then you immediately get a brilliant idea. Almost all organizations just do brainstorming. It's the game designer and the team just throwing out ideas. There's a prototyping involved. If you already are familiar with Unreal or Unity, have some test assets, you might want to throw together something that gives you a feel of the idea. If it works, it might fly. If it doesn't, then you just completely scrap the idea and do something else. Basically, there's a couple of really simple rules. If you cannot summarize your idea in 3 slides, which have about this much information, preferably pictures and a couple of other things, then it's a bad idea. It's too complicated. You cannot implement it on this course. It's probably too complicated for general audience in general. So if you can't express your idea sufficiently with 3 slides and a couple of pictures, some text, then you might want to switch to something more simplified. Also, if you are in a commercial game development, some ideas sound really great when they are on paper or when you are presenting them on slides here. They sound great, but when you implement the game, it's completely horrible because it's too complicated, it's too slow, it's too complex, it's impossible to make the AI good enough, it's impossible to make the user experience as fluent as needed, or simply the idea is not fun after a certain while. On the other way around, some idea on paper might be completely stupid. Tap this egg 1 million times and you get a baby hatchling, or something like fly a bird through infinite maze. Not exactly the most earth-shaking idea ever, but still, when you implement the game and put it online, it's huge fucking commercial success. Why? It's quick, short bursts of usability. You do something, it might do something unexpected, or it might go viral, or it might throw out surprises or stuff like that. Really simple things sometimes work much better than highly complex, highly detailed, highly defined ideas. But of course, it doesn't have to mean that everything has to be simple enough so that even a rock or something else can use it. So it doesn't have to be designed for small children. It's just that it's usually better if you want to implement something simplified, that if you can express it neatly, then it's probably going to be something that's easy to explain. Because no one wants to take a fucking course to understand how to play a game. We are not tax assessors here or something like that. May keep the user interface simple. Also, since this is a course about game design or game development, to be more precise, you are expected to draft a game design document. And yes, yet again, this is something that's taken directly from the game design documents that the game studios themselves do. When they start to develop game seriously, even if they do highly iterative process, they might have this art portfolio or sort of game bible, defining all the key aspects, characters, moments, levels, layout, visual appearance, themes, so that everyone gets the sort of same idea. So that, for example, if you are making a next Fallout game, someone doesn't decide that, okay, what we need here is orcs. No, we don't need orcs. But we need super mutants because this is a Fallout game. So the game, you are basically making the first version of your own game bible for the game. So there's a draft, well, or template on which you will start to working. And well, I thought the link was next, but the link is on the Moodle pages. You don't have to come up with yourself. There's a draft template. It's on the Google Docs. Make a copy of your own on your own computer and fill that. But basically define general theme, main characters, genre, most important features, story if there is any, and technical decisions. You probably don't know it, but for example, for the first original Doom, the id Software hired a skiffy writer to make a 800-page extensive backstory for the entire world in which the Doom is set. Okay, that sounds great. They found out that no one actually gives a fuck about the backstory, and it was too difficult to express in the technology of that time. So do you know what they used from that original game Bible? 4 pictures, which were used as an inspiration for the enemies in that game. So okay, that might not have been the wisest move to hire a guy to design an 800-page layout and then use 3 pictures out of it. But still, for example, things like Fallout, which I mentioned earlier, the Fallout Bible being existing is actually one of the reasons why the franchise even survived being put in a storage for 10 years or so. Because it was so well-defined place, even though the Van Buren, the original Fallout 3, folded because the game studio went bankrupt, well, because of the great, insane new owner, but anyway, that's a different story. They still had the place defined to a certain degree and were able to actually give the idea to the next developer team who was able to make the first-person Fallouts we now know. So this is not also important for continuity, but it's also important for you to sort of test your ideas out. What could benefit this game? What would be nice addition? What would be a thing that sets my game different from the other games of the genre? Of course, on this course, you are not expected to make something unique to the degree that it's actually a popular game. For example, like Journey, the sort of a meta-platformer game on PlayStation 3 originally. I think it's now launched in other places. It's a platformer game where I think it's not actually even possible to die. But still, it sold hugely, and it was a sort of an artistic experience. It's a sort of a puzzle platformer game. You might want to check that out if you have the compatible platform. But it was still something completely different. So perhaps they also, well, most probably they also have game design document for the theme or for the art style or how they want to express their world. And of course, when you are doing something which combines programmers and artists, you really want everyone to know what they are actually doing, because the artists have a tendency to, well, let's say fly to one direction, and the programmers have tendency to have this really narrow tunnel vision, and they are just doing their own job. So try to lead that group. Anyway, the game design document is part of your own game project or your personal project. So the template is here. It's also going to be appearing on the Moodle pages directly. So make your own copy of the template. And when you have done the tutorial project and decided on what tools and what type of game you are making, then fill out the game design document and start drafting out your own personal project. So, but one thing, keep it simple. You have 12 weeks to complete this project. The deadline for all deliverables is on the first days of December, so keep that in mind. You don't have too much time. And for example, this game here, Breakout, made millions of money. Well, probably won't be doing the same thing today, but still, this design made millions of money. these things, well, have also been influential. There's the original Mario Bros. Game. That's the only layout or only level in the entire game. Everything happens there. Well, you know the Pac-Man. That's fairly normal. And this is, well, let's say adventure game. And who knows what game this is? Yes, E.T. The first complete bombshell of a game. Almost killing games industry, by the way. And one of the only games in existence where they made more game cartridges that were sold game consoles, because they were expecting that this game here will be so popular that people will buy the game console just to play that game. And it was completely horrible disaster, which basically grenaded Atari company in the 80s. To the degree that when Nintendo came to Western markets, they actually didn't sell it as an entertainment system, they sold it as a personal computer. That's why they also had this sort of a weird added thingies on the original versions. Because game console had such a bad name in America and Europe because of this game and Atari, that the original Nintendo had to be sold as a home computer, even though it was originally and fully designed as a game console. Of course, all the robot things and disk drives and keyboards, which were only available, I guess, in Japan, but still, they were meant to give the sort of illusion that it's going to be more than just a thing that can run this train wreck of a project. And finally, on simple design, who knows what game this is? Well, most of you. Well, good. So this is the original Doom. This is one of the most influential game designs ever made. Of course, it looks like it's a 3D game, but it's actually a 2D game. It gives you an idea that it's a 3D game, but you can't jump. You can't leave the Z-axis ever at all. That's because the game is basically a 2D shooter, and everything the game does, it calculates on a plane. That's why it also sometimes feels a bit janky. On the Doom 2, they have actually added 3 real-D applications, but on the original Doom, you are running around in a 2D maze, and you have a couple of different weapons, and you are just blasting away the things that are on your way or trying to kill you. Not exactly that difficult design. Well, of course, that might be still something that you can do in 12 weeks, but still, it's really, really simplified design if you compare it to today's standardization, well, or game standards. So, a couple of things. We do have restrictions on your personal projects. Like when I said that keep it simple, I mean that keep the idea itself simple. Technically or mechanically, there has to be certain things. This is a list of most of these things. So the game compiles and works as a standalone product. You don't need debugging or developer mode or installation of the toolkit for the game to function. This is more or less given, but every year someone tries to argue that the game is complete, it just won't compile, so why are you giving me a failed grade? Well, because your game doesn't compile, and now it's said that it does have to compile. Also, the game needs to have at least 2 playable levels or modes which are different from each other, or randomly generated content to make each play session different. So with whatever you are doing, you have to have more than 1 level, and you have to have randomly generated content or enemies or positions or obstacles or whatever you want to use. All animated and feedback responsive player character, meaning that your player character has to have animations or they has to obey the physics of the game itself. It doesn't have to follow it perfectly, but the game character has to stop when they hit walls, or fall down when they go over a pit or something like that. So the player character has to somehow be responsive, and it has to be animated to the degree that you actually know that you are doing something. All visual elements are sized, placed, and created to follow the general theme. No placeholders or rip-to-ship textures. Meaning that if you want to rip off something, do it on some other course, have enough professional courtesy or professional proudness to actually do the game properly. So when you are using elements or textures or 3D models, you can use Unity examples or Unity templates or stuff like that, but try to make the game look nice. Not just do not use a print screen and then copy paste textures which are all over the place. It looks horrible and it really doesn't look good at all. You also should have at least some sound effects. And you should have a way to measure progress or completion via high score or level progression. If you are making an adventure game, you are progressing through the different scenes. If you are making an action game, you are progressing through the levels. Or if you are making an arcade game or platformer or something, you will have high score. This is a pretty self-explanatory thing, really. And the game has a main menu from which you can start or quit the game or restart the game. So you don't have to kill the process from the process management when you want to quit the game. That's not that difficult to do in any case. You should also consider that you have different items or powers or abilities, several levels, different enemy types, music, high score, load save game feature, animated and responsive enemies, items, and environment. So the latter part here is something you might want to consider using to get a better grade. The first part is something that you have to have so that you have actually made enough effort to even pass this course. Also, some legalese or legal issues. The game has to be self-made. Cooperation can be done. It has to be reported in the game design document or in-game credits. No teams in general. So everyone submits their own game, but you can of course cooperate with each other, help each other out especially. You can use bought assets from, for example, Unity Asset Store, but you can also, on this course, only use free example stuff. But also you can use bought assets. If you are using something that you didn't make yourself, that has to be referenced in code or in documentation, and it includes all graphical assets, music assets, source codes, 3D models, 2D models, all the things that you incorporate into your game. It cannot also be an earlier project. It has to be made for this particular course. It cannot include illegally acquired assets, so everything has to be self-made, public domain, open source, or have license allowing you to use that, or have a receipt so that you have licensed it for your own use. And finally, the game has to be compiled and deployed version of the game, which works on Windows workstation with keyboard and mouse, or on normal Firefox or Chrome installation. Because you will be peer reviewing each other's works, and I will be also reviewing each of your works. I don't want to install any Chinese extra libraries to my computer so that I can run your game project. If it starts to say that you need to install this and this and this to actually play this game, let's say that your grading process has been completed at that point. So it's a fail. So consider it this way: if you make a game which you can run on browser on our university library or these classroom computers, then you are home free. Of course, if there's some freak driver issues on peer reviewer's computer or somewhere else, then we of course have a review on why it's actually not working. But keep in mind that Windows Workstation, keyboard and mouse, or normal Chrome or Firefox installation. So this course has only one hard deadline, and this year it's 6th of December, 8 a.m. in the morning. So that means that you should and have to submit all your project-related files for both tutorial projects and your own game design, and the teaser trailer and all the other requested items before this deadline. And of course, this is on the latter part of the year, meaning that we are already on the last few weeks of the fall semester when this deadline happens, so we will not be granting exceptions or extensions to this deadline. But you have plenty of time, so we are leaving the scheduling up to you. Just remember that you have to submit all the things required by this course before the deadline, 6th of December, 8 a.m. in the morning. Also, since there's going to be quite a lot of work, we used to have several deadlines here, but it meant that people just kept turning in crappy work because they almost ran out of time before starting. So keep in mind that there's a sort of a rule of thumb here. The tutorials and the game design document aren't that difficult things to do. So we will be having these lectures more or less about once a month. So by the next lecture, try to have your tutorial project and the game design document done. And when we are having the final lecture, it's going to be at the same week as the deadline. So before the last lecture, you should already have done everything or completed everything. So all these things you will be submitting through Moodle. You won't be sending me or the course assistant anything. You just send everything to Moodle and then host the video file somewhere. For example, the university OneDrive is one place. If you put it on private mode on YouTube, probably no one will notice it. During the couple of weeks, it has to be online. Or if you are proud of your work, you might just want to leave it there. But anyway, you have to also consider the thing that where you want to host your files and your videos. The OneDrive thing that our university offers to all our students and staff is sufficient, so use that if you don't have anything else. And on the grading work, you all who submitted something or submitted your personal project will be reviewing 2 other works. You are going through a checklist of things, seeing that how well made or how ambitious the game originally was. And you can give an idea on what sort of grade would you want to give for this product. Of course, I will be also doing the grading work, and I will be saying the final word here. But still, you will be seeing how others did and what sort of things others did, so you can basically compare yourself to other works and also give feedback to the original developer on what to improve if they missed something because it's their child, they don't see the faults on it. So give an idea on what you might actually want to consider or improve. After you have submitted your project works, you will be working on the peer review. Of course, this peer review will be based on a checklist which will be provided you when the review phase starts. You don't need to make your own peer review or write your own magazine-style game review. You can fill a form in the Moodle, and that should give all the necessary information for me and the person whose game you are reviewing. But on this checklist, we will be focusing on the aspects mentioned here. For example, how close to the original idea the implementation got, how ambitious the original plan was to begin with, how complete the demo was as a game or standalone product, how many different techniques and functions the game applies and utilizes, how fun the game was, because that's actually one of the things that you need when you are designing game. It might be technically perfect, but if it's not fun or doesn't provide the expected user experience, it's not much of a game. So this is also something that we are reviewing. Also, how much other artistic work was included and how much was taken from other sources, and also how detailed the additional documentation or the package was. So basically these are the things you will be focusing on the peer review, and you will be given a checklist and a ready-made form when we start the peer review round. And of course, the peer review is among the project work's mandatory part of the course. No review, no grade. It's fairly simple that way, and we will be completing everything so that you will get your grade before the Christmas. So if you are leaving back home or leaving for an exchange before January, then you will have time to get the course grades before you have to leave or go back home, depending if you are visiting us or going somewhere else. Of course, since we are now on the master's course, we are allowing you to actually be part of the administrative process or grading process. I will say this, and I will warn you only once. You are participating in something that affects other people's grades or have the possibility to affect other people's grades. So do it seriously, pay attention to the instructions and do as asked. If you just decide to goof off or submit one-word answer to the open questions, or you happen to know the person whose game you are reviewing, and because you have some personal disputes over something, decide to give a 0 grade just because you hate that one, or do something else which is academically unethical, well, you will win yourself a further academic action, because this is a part of the project. Don't fuck this up, is what I'm trying to say. So take it seriously. So, now that I have been talking to you about, well, 1 hour actually, on what you are expected to do on this course, so what are you then going to do after you leave this classroom? So, take Unity, go check that out, do the tutorial project, or think what sort of games you want to make and select the tutorial projects you want to do. Or if you already have experience on game development, find out something that you would like to investigate as a replacement for your tutorial project and send me an email. If you want to use something else, you are familiar with Unreal or GameMaker or some other framework or game engine or development tool, then you are free to use that. You just have to mention it on your personal game design document. So just when you are asked to list or define how will you make the game, you just mention there that I will be using Unreal or I will be using GameMaker or something to that degree, so that I more or less know what sort of project to expect. But if you are uncertain on what framework to use Unity, because that's one on which we will actually at least try to help you if you run into a complete stop. Okay, so what should I do next? First, get yourself a workstation and set up your working environment. Of course, like mentioned earlier, if you are working on without any prior knowledge or experience on game development, you might want to use Unity and start with that, and Unity's tutorials and beginner level projects. Of course, if you already are advanced game developer or have some experience on this stuff, then you can also propose your own tutorial project, but nevertheless, start your tutorials, design your own game design document, and submit those via the course Moodle. Then you can start making your own game, and while you are finalizing it, make a teaser trailer and create a playable copy of your game, and put all these things also available to Moodle. Finally, in December, do the reviews and submit your reports to teachers, and that's that. And of course, what to do next on this course, besides starting to work as a self-study work, we also have follow-up lectures and further topics we are discussing about how software engineering and games industry, or software industry and games industry, are related, and what we can bring from the software engineering discipline into game development. So these topics will be discussed on the next lectures, which will be released roughly every 3 weeks, starting from this one, of course, which is released on the week 36, and is the first lecture. So on the second lecture, we will be talking about the game design. On the third lecture, I will be giving a short and brief introduction on the different game engines and how to work with them. And on the fourth lecture, we will be talking about the game studios and games industry in comparison to software industry, and how game studios in general work. The sixth lecture will be about gamification and serious games, which are related to these topics and combine both aspects from the software engineering and software development world and games. And the fifth lecture, which will be at some point during this fall, probably on the second period, will be an industry viewpoint where a guest lecturer will be talking about running a game studio startup or game studio in general. Be advised that the fifth lecture, the guest lecture, might not be a record. If the guest chooses so, it might only be streamed, but of course this will be informed to you closer to the event. The other lectures, the first, second, third, fourth, and sixth, are produced by us, our department, and will be released as a recording like this one, which you can later view at your own leisure. So, there you have it. This was the first lecture. Now I advise you to go to the Moodle, check out the instructions, check out the more detailed information for the first and second project, start to come up with your own game design, and also select tools and tutorial projects you are most interested in. There is a pro tip here, select for the first project tutorials something that supports your design or idea for a game, so that you can report your self-study work in the first report and then show us what you created as your own game design. Don't worry about it. This will be a laborious course if you set your ambition levels high. Of course, we don't expect you to make a new AAA game product, but hopefully you will find this experiment or course interesting and engaging and something fun to do. So let's get started, and I will be releasing the next lecture on game design in a few weeks. In the meanwhile, you can send comments and feedback to the Moodle pages, contact the teaching assistant if you need help to get started, or in any administrative issue or anything else like that. You can contact me via email and ask for more detailed information, or if you have completed similar course earlier, if you could compensate, for example, the first project with something that you can demonstratively do or have done beforehand. Anyway, have fun, and we'll see in a few weeks. Goodbye.